Before we get into today's video, if you want to get a shout out on a future Broncos breakdown, shout out your city for me down below in the comments section. It's funny that it's called Broncos country, but in a lot of ways, this fan base knows no boundaries. So let me know where you are tuning in from down below. Coming up on today's show, we're going to reveal Courtland Sutton's announcement as to whether or not he will attend mandatory minicamp. And then Randy Gregory, blast from the past, he is suing the Broncos. We're going to tell you why in just a little bit. But let's start with Courtland Sutton, who hopped on the DNVR podcast and announced that he will be at mandatory minicamp. He did skip voluntary OTAs as he is seeking some sort of bump in his contract. Whether that's just more cash for 2024, more guaranteed money, or a little bit of both. That is ultimately what he is trying to get from the Broncos after a 10-touchdown season with 2 years left on that 4-year, $60+ million extension he signed in the middle of the 2021 season. Now, had he not shown up to mandatory minicamp, he could have been fined upwards of $100,000. We're seeing that play out right now with guys like CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. Now, inevitably, most likely, when those guys sign their extensions, the teams will wipe away those fines. They're not trying to be petty and just profit off their players, or at least I hope not. But for Courtland Sutton, he was not about to lose $100,000 in fines. So, for me, this is a sigh of relief, but it's not like a shocking development. You know, deep down, I think we all thought Sutton will be there at mandatory minicamp. This is a very minute contract dispute that I didn't think would raise to the level of skipping OTAs. We're talking about an extra $1.5 million, give or take, in extra cash being added, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Now, he does only have $2 million remaining in guaranteed money for 2 years left on his contract. My guess is Sutton wants to get some more guaranteed money for 2025 so that the Broncos are committed to him beyond just 2024. And listen, he comes off a 10-touchdown season. I can kind of see his point of view. At the same time, since signing that contract extension, he has played 2022, 2023, and half of 2021. And for most of the games in that stretch, he was relatively underwhelming from a production standpoint. He only had 4 total touchdowns combined, 2021, 2022. Then last year in 2023, he balloons up to 10, 750-ish yards. So not the greatest production season we've seen from a Broncos wideout, but ultimately, I'm not shocked that he is reporting to mandatory minicamp. I never thought it would really elevate to the level of, oh snap, this is about to go downhill real fast. Now, when Sutton was talking to the guys at DNVR, he also talked about Bo Nix, and I thought you guys might get a kick out of what he had to say. Bo brings a lot of really good qualities to our team in terms of the quarterback position. I didn't know if we were going to have a chance to be able to get him. Whenever the conversation started to come about and we were made the pick, I was excited to see that we were going to be able to work with him. He has that leader mentality, that aura that he carries, that he walks with. So obviously, it's exciting to hear the wide receiver, the veteran guy, talk highly and praise the rookie quarterback, because hopefully this is a connection and a duo that starts to build some chemistry, since they didn't get that chance during OTAs. But we're still a long ways away from week 1 against Seattle. I don't think missing out on opportunities in May is going to be detrimental as a fact when September rolls around. But, you know, you do find yourself a little bit behind than where you would like to be at this stage. Now, I also thought this next snippet from Sutton was really interesting. He said, the things that Bo does very well and the things that I do well can allow us to have success. I think our offense is going to be very exciting offense. It's going to be a very exciting offense to watch. So he talked about the things that Bo does well, and Bo does a lot of things well. But I did do a deep dive in terms of Courtland Sutton receiving depth the last 2 seasons for the Broncos. And you guys can see that Sutton is not just a home run deep ball guy. 44%, the highest share of his targets came from 0 to 9 yards. And we're not going to go down the rabbit hole of Bo Nix can only check it down. Like, sure, that's what he did mostly at Oregon. But, you know, even myself, who's been a critic of the selection, can understand that when you get to the NFL, you can elevate your game, because at the collegiate level, Your coach may not ask you to push the ball down the field that much because it's not what's best for the team, even if you are able to do that. But Jack, can we go back to the Courtland Sutton stats? Because I'm not going to be completely on board with Sutton and Bo Nix from a quarterback wide receiver tandem are a perfect match, right? We have to wait and see a little bit as to whether or not Nix can be an efficient downfield passer. And when you look at Courtland Sutton receiving depth the last 2 years, 55% of his targets came from 10 yards or more, whereas Bo Nix at Oregon, he was not airing it out down the field all that much. So I'm not saying Bo Nix can't accomplish that, right? But we just haven't seen it yet. And we may very well see it. But that to me just kind of jumped out to me as a little bit of an interesting quote from Sutton because on paper, that doesn't really appear to be the case. And there's going to be some other things that make these two, a really good tandem. But when you look at what Sutton did the most in terms of his receiving depth and how often Bo Nix went deep with the football, the two aren't aligning, but they very well could. Now, who do you think is going to have more receiving yards in 2024? Courtland Sutton, or I'll toss out Marvin Mims, because I think Mims is in for a really big sophomore campaign. Sutton last year, 770-ish yards, give or take. So do you think Marvin Mims can surpass Courtland Sutton? Let me know down below in the comment section. Now let's switch gears altogether and talk about Randy Gregory. Yeah, the guy that stole about $28 million guaranteed from the Broncos. He is now suing the Broncos and the National Football League. And he kind of has an interesting case. Mike Florio, who I think is a really good breakdowner of the legal side of things, he wrote, via Justin Weingarter of Business Den, former Broncos defensive end Randy Gregory has sued both the league and the team under the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act. The argument is that Gregory needs THC to treat social anxiety disorder and PTSD, and that he nevertheless has been fined more than $500,000 after testing positive for it. Now, there's a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo that I'm not just going to read off to you because I'll probably bore you to sleep, but let me kind of give you the spark notes of it. So, Randy Gregory is alleging that despite having social anxiety disorder and PTSD, he needs THC to treat that. The NFL and the Broncos denied 2 attempts to let him use that non-work hours, and he was still testing positive, and he was fined over $500,000. So in 5-year-old terms, maybe 5-year-old, 10-year-old terms, the Broncos were asking Randy Gregory to do his full job. They were taking some of his pay away from it, and he was being discriminated against under Colorado state law because he needs that THC to do his job, to treat his social anxiety and his PTSD. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't know Randy Gregory on a personal level whatsoever, so I won't begin to speculate as to whether or not this is him kind of reaching for something, whether or not he really needs THC for social anxiety or PTSD. I don't know, and I don't really care, to be honest. But I do find this to be very interesting because what if other players start coming out going, wait a minute, based on where I live for the team I play for, can I also get some of the money back that the NFL has fined me? The NFL is no longer in the business of suspending players for weed for the most part, but they are in the business of fining players because they love to make a profit. So I'm kind of interested to see how this works out. The NFL will have their kangaroo court, and it's not going to go well for the player because when does it ever? But if it reaches an actual, Colorado state court, then I don't know what to expect if it ever gets there. So this to me definitely has my attention, and we'll monitor it and see where it goes. But Mr. Gregory, I'm reading the civil complaint that he alleges that the NFL and the Broncos denied his request, noting that THC is a federally controlled substance. Since requesting an accommodation, Mr. Gregory has paid $532,500 in penalties. Mr. Gregory is expected to play in every game, attend practice, attend media sessions, and fulfill his job responsibilities. In other words, he cannot be suspended for a positive test alone. Significantly, the NFL and the Broncos profited from Mr. Gregory's continued employment. So we'll see where this goes. Just whether or not this gets to court or not, we'll have to wait and see. But this is a very unique case, to say the least. And the Broncos ultimately, I think, just put this aside, are happy to have their hands clean from Randy Gregory. Remember, he signed a 5-year, $70 million contract. They only guaranteed $28 million. So when the contract was announced 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2022, I remember saying, like, I look at this as a 2-year, $28 million contract, $14 million a season, and they cut him a quarter of the way into the 2023 year, and they were left with about a $22 million dead cap hit, give or take. So he is now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way. He signed a 1-year, $3 million contract. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. If you enjoyed it, hit the sub button down below. Make sure to like the video as well, and I'll see you all later.